In a world where dictatorships are on the rise, a sad ending to Maria Kolesnikova's story could be dire for us all. As one of the few who stood up to Alexander Lukashenko in Belarus, Kolesnikova represents the last line of defense against the spread of Putinism throughout Europe. Her struggle against that brutal regime would see her go from flutist to revolutionary. After gaining its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, Belarus started lurching towards democracy. It drafted a constitution complete with checks and balances, but when Alexander Lukashenko was elected as the country's first president in 1994, he began to consolidate power and suppress opposition. Over the years, he has manipulated the constitution to extend his rule and crack down on free media and civil society. But when he rigged the election in 2020 to maintain his grip on power, something changed in Kolesnikova. She decided to take on a challenge that would inspire millions and make her an icon of the Belarus democracy movement. Born in Minsk in 1982, Kolesnikova discovered a passion for music at an early age. She studied flute at the prestigious Belarusian Academy of Music. But the presidential election of 2020 changed everything. The vote was marred by fraud and manipulation, blatantly rigged to hand Lukashenko his sixth term. Outraged Belarusians took to the streets in the hundreds of thousands to protest the stolen election and demand a free and fair vote. It quickly became the largest and longest pro-democracy demonstrations in the country's post-Soviet history. Unwilling to stand by as her country descended into crisis, Kolesnikova threw herself into the cause. She joined forces with Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya and Veronika Tsepkalo, forming a trio of women who led the opposition movement against Lukashenko. Tsikhanouskaya ran as the main opposition candidate in the 2020 presidential election after her husband, Sergei Tikhanovsky, was barred from running and imprisoned by the regime. Kolesnikova co-founded the Coordination Council to facilitate a peaceful transfer of power. She became one of the most visible leaders of the pro-democracy movement, delivering speeches across the country calling for an end to Lukashenko's dictatorship. At countless rallies, she denounced the regime's brutality to its face. Lukashenko's security forces, determined to crush the democracy movement, sought to intimidate and terrorize the opposition. Peaceful protesters were beaten in the streets and thrown in jail on trumped-up charges. In September 2020, Kolesnikova's colleagues in the Coordination Council, Maria Kolesnikova and Maxim Zanak, were detained by the authorities. Yet Kolesnikova did not respond with anger, but with love.
Этого нельзя допустить. Мы один народ. Только любовь нас спасет. Только любовь.
In September 2020, Kolesnikova had just left a press conference in Minsk when she was suddenly seized by masked men and forced into a waiting van. Witnesses reporting seeing the men grab Kolesnikova and push her into the vehicle, which sped off. The van belonged to Belarus's notorious KGB security service. The next day, her captors drove her to the Ukrainian border. They gave her a choice to leave the country, quote, alive or in bits. But Kolesnikova wouldn't back down. She jumped out of the window, fought off the thugs, and ripped up her passport, making deportation impossible. It was a stunning act of bravery, for which she was arrested and thrown in jail. In September 2021, after a year behind bars and a sham trial, Kolesnikova was convicted on charges of conspiring to seize state power and sentenced to 11 years in prison. She remains there to this day. But even from behind bars, Kolesnikova has continued to speak out for freedom with courage and moral clarity. Belarus continues to suppress all dissent, with authorities intensifying their crackdowns on independent journalists and activists. Through her actions and words, Maria Kolesnikova has become a powerful symbol of the fight for democracy and human rights in Belarus and beyond. Despite all that she's lost, she still believes it was all worth it.
Я многого лишилась, конечно же, в своей жизни, но я считаю, что это стоит того, чтобы попробовать и действительно, чтобы Беларусь приблизить вот к этому другому будущему, без авторитаризма, без вот этой системы жуткой абсолютно еще, которая осталась с советских часов. И мне кажется, что это стоит того, чтобы за это побороться.